Morning everyone, trying something new today. Welcome to the point of review of my 2004 Land Rover Discovery. So this is a Discovery 2. I believe the Discovery 2 started being made in 1999 or 2000. A couple of minor changes from the Discovery 1. I'm not sure about all of them. I know there was a facelift. They moved the location of the rear taillights. I think some interior updates. We got another update in 2003, which was another facelift we got the Range Rover headlights from the day, I believe. And we also got a center locking diff in this car. I've had this car since, it's currently November. I had it since about July of 2017, so just a few months. I've put not too many miles on it, and so far I've really been enjoying the ar. Overall, I should say. This car was a quote-unquote gift from my aunt and uncle. They are the original owners. They got it in 04, brand new from the dealer. And for a while, it was taken very good care of. More so, the dealer took very good care of it for them. And then once it passed, once my aunt stopped using it and let her husband use it most of the time, the condition kind of went down the toilet a little bit. So I inherited the car with about 154,000 miles, and my dad and I spent about 2 months catching it up on maintenance and fixing everything that my uncle unfortunately neglected to do to the car. They gave it to me basically because he's not a car guy. He didn't want to or have any interest in continuing to fix it. And I had wanted the car since the time I was 17 and I first saw it, and I just fell in love with it. I was lusting for this thing ever since. So now I'm 26 and they decided to let me have the car because it needed a ton of work. When I first got this car, it really had been neglected. So here's a quick rundown of all the things I did with my dad in a 2-month period of fixing this up. Replace the transmission, replace the transfer case, replace the front brake calipers, pads, and rotors, replace the power steering pump, replace the high pressure power steering pump hose, which was leaking like a mofo. We replaced one of the AC condenser lines, partly because, mainly because my dad broke that himself actually, so I don't know if that counts. When replacing the headlight bulbs, I sheared every single bolt that holds the headlights in, so those were all replaced. There was a big hole in the front headlight that was allowing water to get in, so we had to fix that as well. The electric fan wasn't working, so we replaced that as well. We did the tires, not a big deal. Oil change, filter, all the standard kind of maintenance little stuff. Another thing we replaced, there's for the coolant, there's a little Y coupler with a valve in it. So the valve in that failed. I can't remember exactly what it does, but it's basically one of the coolant couplers for this thing. So another thing, here's a classic Land Rover issue. We had a shop replace the transmission and the transfer case. Actually, how that went is we knew it needed we thought it needed a transmission. In hindsight, I don't actually think it needed a transmission, but I didn't really figure that out until after it was already done and paid for, so I'm just gonna let that be. But while the shop was replacing the transmission, they went to change the fluid in the transfer case and found that when they undid the drain plug, the only thing that came out was metal. So we replaced the transfer case as well as the transmission. Now, after the transmission was replaced, we were still having some issues. I was getting a couple of check engine lights. One for the clutch sensor solenoid was stuck off or not working. The gear 4 ratio was coming up as incorrect. Every now and again I got cylinder 4 misfire. Also, the truck was, anytime you did a hill start, it would rev up and then like slam into gear. Also, it would kind of clunk going into first and second, and it would clunk coming to a stop, shifting out of overdrive or unlocking the what's it called, the torque converter. So all of these issues we had after the transmission was replaced. So we took it back to the shop. They did the oil, they did the fluid filter and changed a few seals. I can't remember what exactly. We had gotten a second-hand transmission, so it probably just needed that stuff anyways. 1,500 miles later, everything seems to be fine. Hopefully continues to be fine. This car came with the front grill guard, the big metal one, with the dual driving spotlights. Unfortunately, either the relay, the bulb, something was broken, so I haven't gotten to try those yet. Also, the brush guard was rusted to hell. I should say is rusted to hell. So I need to also fix that. Basically, to sum up the experience of fixing this car, literally, I kid you not, every time we went to fix something, we found something else that was broken. Now that we've gotten basically the restoration process complete, I love this car. It is fantastic. It's unbelievably handsome, I think. It looks so good. There's nothing else on the road that looks like it. It's not too tall, it's not too big, it's not obscenely high off the ground. It's just a really good, well-proportioned vehicle. To drive, it's surprisingly car-like, I think. The other SUV that I have owned in my life, will still own, and spent a lot of time in, is a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.9 Limited. Which is a lovely thing. It's fast as hell, but the steering is pretty vague and meaningless in that car. In here, it's actually pretty good, and for what it is, for a high-riding, tall, big, heavy SUV, it honestly handles really nicely. It handles, I think, a lot better than it should, probably partially due to having massive sway bars compared to my other SUV. The sway bars on this are much bigger, and really everything overall underneath this car is built up probably a lot heavier, I think, and a lot thicker and bulkier than on the 5.9 Grand Cherokee. So in the Jeep, you kind of steer more in hope than expectation that the body isn't going to suddenly slide off of the chassis and you're going to end up in a ditch somewhere. On here, the steering, for starters, it's not nearly as there's not nearly as much play as in my Jeep, and it's not nearly as vague when it does kind of when it does load up a bit. The ride is, well, it's as good as I probably can expect it to be. It rides like a truck, really. Kind of like, it rides like my sister's 2004 Expedition, which is, you know, billed as a luxury vehicle, but it's just an F350 with a nice cab. That's really it. And it shows in how jiggly and how almost rough that the thing rides. In my mind, the Land Rover Discovery is kind of the Jeep Wrangler of the Land Rover lineup, and then the Grand Cherokee is much more akin to the Range Rover. First and foremost, it's an off-roader, but simultaneously, first and foremost, it's a luxury car. This is first and foremost a utility vehicle. Yeah, it's comfortable enough. The materials are okay. And the equipment is okay. This was really more of an expedition exploration vehicle. And you can really see that evident in the old Camel Trophy competitions, which sadly aren't around anymore. But when you get a second, just look up on YouTube Camel Trophy, and it's basically like a Dakar, but for just kind of slow off-road adventure overlanding. It's really, really cool, and it looks like a blast, and I really wish that such an event was still taking place. So yeah, really the things I like most about this car and why I love this car, it's really the way it looks, the way it feels to drive, how it handles, how it looks out on the road. It's just a very commanding viewpoint, and in a lot of towns, you drive through some nicer towns in a Land Rover, and you just feel good. It really just makes you feel wealthy and important when you're driving it. Some of the things I don't really like about this car, the equipment is a little confusing. So some great features that we have: I've got a heated windshield. The main thing I've been doing with the heated windshield is when I've got the AC blasting and the windshield starts to fog up, I'll turn the heated windshield on and it goes away. It's the best thing ever. So that's awesome. I've got a heated windshield, I've got heated seats, I've got a 6-disc CD changer, cassette, radio, automatic climate control, dual zone front climate control, which is all lovely. Some things that are surprisingly missing: driver seat memory. So this does have power driver and passenger seats, but there's no memory function for the driver's seat, which is something that my 98 Grand Cherokee does have. It's got 2-person driver memory for the seat and for the radio favorite stations. This doesn't have any of that, which I find surprising because it's 6 years newer and technically a kind of more of an upscale brand. Another thing it doesn't have that surprises me is it doesn't have a decelerate on the cruise control, which is something that my 2002 Civic Si does have. I've got cruise set and I've got resume on and off, and also set accelerate, but there's no button to decelerate. You have not 1, not 2, but technically 4 sunroofs. You've got one here, you've got another one kind of halfway between the back seats and the 3rd row seats, and then all the way in the back in the trunk you've got two roof corner sunroofs. So I've got heated seats, heated windshield, heated rear window, of course, a compass in my rear view mirror, 7 seats, 4 sunroofs, but no driver memory functions. That makes a ton of sense. It really needs another 100 horsepower and a 5-gear automatic, a 5-speed automatic gearbox. This car is apocalyptically slow. I have never looked up the 0 to 60 time, but it's got to be in the 10-second range. So this car came with 200 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque, and that is on a 4.6 liter V8 from 2004. By comparison, my 98 5.9 Grand Cherokee is 240 horse, 340 torque. It's also a few hundred pounds lighter than this, and that car gets to 60 in about 6.5 seconds. For the transmission, it seems to be geared really low. 40 miles an hour in this car, you're at about 1500 RPM. In my Jeep, I'm about 1000 RPM. And then on the highway at 55, I'm cruising at about 2000 RPM, which I think is really high for a V8 engine car. This could really use either a taller overdrive or even a 5th gear. Also, because it doesn't have enough horsepower to get out of its own way, when you're in a really hilly area, the transmission has a hard time making up its mind with what it wants to do in life, it shifts around and in and out of top gear and overdrive a lot. So really, when you're tackling a hill, the best thing to do is to just take it and drop it down into third here, and then cruise up the hill. And then when you're back on the downhill, go back into drive. Land Rover, it seems like Land Rover probably thought of this, because you don't need to press the button to go from drive to third. You just slap it down. So they probably knew that that was going to happen. Where the acceleration is pretty abysmal, the brakes are actually pretty darn good. The rotors are of a pretty big size, and something I've never had before on a car. This has 2 piston calipers up front, so the pedal feel and the stopping power on this is actually pretty darn good. Not good for a car of this size and weight. I think it's good, period. Also, and this is maybe a little thing, the turning radius on this car is not very good. It's not nearly as good as my Grand Cherokee is. I think even my sister's Expedition might have a better turning radius than this, or at the very least, I perceive it to have a better turning radius than this, because I'm continuously surprised by how tight a circle that Expedition can go around in. This car, for being a short wheelbase, plucky off-roader, I really think it should have a tighter turning radius. I haven't taken this thing off-road yet, but I would imagine, you know, having taken my Jeep off-road on numerous occasions, there are definitely times where I would need to do a little bit of 3-point maneuvering in this car where I wouldn't have to do it in the Grand Cherokee. Another thing that kind of bugs me about this car is the location of the switchgear, specifically for the seats and the window controls. They're not on the door here. They're not on the center stack here. They're here, if you can see that. And I guess when your hand is on the armrest, it makes sense enough. You know, everything is right here. But I still struggle often with finding the button that I want. Another thing, so this car has automatic down front windows. However, there's no detent in the switch. How you get the window to roll down automatically? You just push it once quickly, and there it goes, coming down. Which is, you know, well enough. But if you want to open the window just a little bit, in most cars, if you want to open the window just a little bit, you know, press that switch, you know, kind of shortly and quickly. But that kind of a press in this car gets the automatic window to roll all the way down. So you're going along, it's like, oh, I just want to crack my window a little bit, so I just touch the window. Oh no, shit, oh no, it's all going all the way down. Then you got to roll it back up. It's like, okay, now I get it. Now, oh no, I want a little bit further down than that. Okay, then, oh, now there's the automatic window again. Now roll it back up. Okay, here we go. But so if you press and hold just a sec, oh nope, there it goes, the automatic window again. So in this car, really, if you're gonna put the windows down, just put them all the way down. This car is equipped with the 7-seat package, which is nice. So for being marginally longer than a Jeep Grand Cherokee, you know, the one that I have, the ZJ, you can fit an extra 2 people, and that's pretty cool. They don't have a ton of legroom. You know, normally when the seats you have, you know, the seat is high up off the floor, kind of like a regular chair is. Back in the jump seats, the cushion is only like 6 inches off of the trunk floor, so you're kind of in there, you're back there with your knees in your chest a little bit. It's definitely not a long distance 7-passenger vehicle. Now let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room with Land Rovers, and that is maintenance. I'm gonna be completely honest. If you do not want to or cannot wrench or work on your own cars, I wouldn't get this. I would not buy this. There are a lot of electronic systems and gremlins and weird, silly things that can and do go wrong with these cars. And also some mechanical things that go wrong fairly regularly with these cars. Even I don't know if I would even get it if you don't have a good Land Rover specialist within a towable driving distance, because you're not going to be able to own this car alone. I think you're gonna be going on forums, you're gonna be talking to specialists, you're going to be fixing it with yourself and your friends and your family members. But here's a silly maintenance thing. The wiper blades are such a weird design. Most cars have that sort of J hook and you just put on whatever the hell you want. On here, it's so proprietary that there is a company, Atlantic British, they sell a conversion kit to take these and put them back to the Discovery 1 wipers, which have the regular J hooks. I don't know where you get wipers for these. My dad found them and put them on for me. I don't know where he bought them. I don't know how much they were. You're not going to go down to any local auto parts, you know, Advance Auto, Napa, whoever. None of them are going to have wipers for this thing, and that's kind of a pain in the ass. There are just a lot of silly little things with these cars that are never ending, and unless you have patience and mechanical knowledge or just a ridiculous amount of money to put into a car with no resale value, I wouldn't get it. So to sum up, you don't buy this car because it's reliable or economical, or maybe even because it's the best choice for you or because it makes the most sense. You get one of these because you love it. You love the way it looks, you love the way it drives, you love the way it makes you feel, you love going on adventures in it. You just love it. This is a car of passion, not of it makes sense, because it really doesn't make sense. Coming in Myersville Road. Ooh, I think I might know. Oh, hey, it's the firehouse. Hey, I know where I am. Son of a gun. How about that?